Hey guys, M.V.K here, back again. How's everybody doing? Hope everybody is well on their end. And today, guys, I wanted to give my thoughts or give my praise and honoring a man because we, in the comic book community, which I am included a part of, we lost a great. We lost a great not too long ago. We lost legendary artist Neal Adams. Mr. Adams was 80 years old when he passed, and reading more into what was maybe the complications of his death, found out that he was suffering from a condition called sepsis. I hope I'm saying it right. And it's a condition, pretty much, it's when bacteria is in your bloodstream or something like that, and it's very, 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 very lethal, and it is, a lot of people do die. I had no idea he was going through this, because one, I met the man. I have met the man, and I will talk about that, the time I did meet him. It's been 4 years since I met him, but I will talk about this. Now, Mr. Adams was an advocate and a fighter for artists' rights in the comic book industry. We have to always thank the artists as well. I know we thank the writers and people like that. Don't make it no doubt about it. I have my favorite comic writers and I praise them a lot. But I also have my favorite comic book artists, because if it's not for the artists, they're the ones that bring that, what the writer wrote. They bring that to life. So we get to see what the writer was writing in that script. So you gotta always praise them. Not just the writer, the inkers, that you name it. You gotta praise them all. Mr. Adams was one of those that really was for that. Now, he's the one that also revolutionized Batman in the 70s, and so on and so forth. He also co-created a lot of Batman DC characters, including Ra's al Ghul, whichever way you want to say it, guys. I know what you're talking about. But he was one of those guys. He's worked for Marvel, he's worked for DC. But a lot of his work for DC has been just put on a different level. And his legacy will never die, because there are artists out there that were inspired by him. Jason Fabok, I saw, wrote a beautiful piece for him. Even the great Alex Ross wrote just something really special. Mark Waid wrote a great just how much honor it was for him. I think as comic readers and comic fans that we are, that have been reading comics for more than 10 years, like myself, and look at these works of literature and art as means of escapism and means of showcasing, here's a world where the heroes do win. They do win, and the heroes they lose, but they triumph in the end. Something that for me personally, I wish was in the real world. There's heroes, yeah, but it feels like there's a lot of loss, and there's a lot of people that cloak themselves as being heroes, but they're not. You know what I'm saying? But Mr. Adams was that type of person that was for the people. I would consider him the people's artist, because he was really damn good. His artwork was beautiful, and I've seen a lot of people talk about it and give thanks to him and honor him by putting up pieces of his art and on and wherever, whether it's on social media, from Instagram to Twitter to Facebook, things like that. And one of the pieces that I always talk about with Neal Adams, just showing just type of man he was, and is his work that he did in Green Lantern, Green Arrow. series back in the day. You got to also remember, I know it's a funny way of looking at it. It's like Green Arrow and Green Lantern, two characters that really have nothing in common outside of their name, their first name. But you got to remember, it was the 70s then. And during that time, there were a lot of characters that had solo series, but they weren't selling as well, so they were canceled. And DC with Green Lantern and Green Arrow were one of them. They put those two together. Let's go over to the other side of the tracks. They did the same. Marvel did the same thing with Iron Fist and Luke Cage. What happened? We got one of the greatest bromances in comics between them. With Arrow and Green Lantern, it was somewhat different. It was almost to showcase, here we got this high, mighty, hero, space cop, very egotistical. At that time, Hal Jordan his ego knew no bounds. But then you have a street level hero like Green Arrow, who is for the people, understands the struggles for certain people, even in certain groups, whether it's low class, middle class, you name it. And one of the greatest segues of this showcased was in Green Lantern, Green Arrow number 76. Mr. Adams put his heart and soul into this issue. Dennis O'Neil was the writer, and there's a scene where Ollie and Hal are walking through a low-income apartment complex somewhere, I believe it, in the ghetto, and Ollie is showing, Hal, like, look, this is what's going on. This 80-something-year-old woman, you arrested the one means of her grandson, and Hal's excuse is just, well, he broke the law. And it's just, Ollie just ramping him like, you're too high and mighty, you forgot where you came from, or just, in some cases, just saying like, you think it because you're this high and mighty Green Lantern, you're with the Justice League and everything like that. You got to also put yourself sometime in these people's shoes. And they're just walking through different steps, walking through this apartment complex, and then they get outside. And it was something that Hal said that set Ollie off, and he basically was like, you know where I hear that kind of talk? It's from a neo-Nazi. And whoa, you were just like, whoa. Now, then you hear a voice off panel, a voice basically saying, I like to speak to the ring slinger, Mr. Green Arrow. Turn the page, there's another, and you finally get to see who it is. It is an elderly African-American man coming, and walks up to Hal and says basically, I hear tell that you help the blue skins, you help the purple skins, I heard you help the orange skin people. And then he goes on to say, but when have you ever helped, but there's one color skin you have not helped, the brown skins. Why is that, Mr. Green Lantern? Why haven't you? And Hal says only one word, says two words, I can't. And he just gets held down. Now, what makes that panel so great is just the artwork of the elderly black man. Dennis O'Neil told Neal Adams, and he said this in a special that ran on, I think it was the Learning Channel or somewhere, where they were showing the different eras of comics. And Mr. Adams said, Dennis said, can you draw the most realist, most beaten down elderly black man? You can see like the system just did him wrong. Can you do that? Now, I read an article where they talked about this issue, and Mr. Adams said, I can clearly say, as a white man, I'm probably one of the few that can draw black people really well. There's a lot of people in the industry that many of us fans have said they don't know how to draw blacks. If they don't know how to draw blacks, they don't know how to draw black hair. There have been many talks of that, but you go back and you look at that art, and it's like, when I looked at that art, when I finally got to read that issue, later on when I got older. I completely saw somebody I knew in that old man. I'm like, oh my God, I recognize somebody like that. And I'm not trying to be joking, but it was just like, it was real. And so whenever I hear these young bucks out here who are just getting into comics talk about, oh, you know, these comics are too political, they're too, using that W word, which I can't stand, oh, they're too political, they're too this and that, it's not about fun no more. That's when the New York in me comes out, and I just say, shut the fuck up, because comics have always been political since the day we saw Captain America on the cover, bitch slapping that punk ass Hitler. They've always been real. They kept it true. They have gone there to that point where they keeping it real. So don't sit there and say that they're just starting to do that. Mr. Adams was a part of that era of change and showcasing in comics the ramifications of drug use, racism, you name it, all kind of stuff. He was a part of that, and he did a damn good job doing it. His legacy will always be remembered because it's in us. It's in guys like me. It's in guys who are older than me who really remember his work when they first dropped. It's going to be in all of us. It's just sad that sometimes I think we as fans, we get to the point where we sometimes believe that these comic writers and artists who've been around for decades, they're gods. They're gonna live forever. And I can say for myself, I thought something like that. For a few, I was like, I thought Hen Lee was gonna live forever. Was gonna live a long time. But I was wrong. And I think sometimes that's what we need to remember, that they're human too. They're not gods. And they may have given us hope and emotions and all kinds of joy with their work, but they're not going to live forever. And unfortunately, he was. He had a condition that was a fate to his life. And it's sad. It's very sad. I met Mr. Adams back in 2018. I met him New York Comic Con 2018, and I remember because at that time it was early, but he had his booth up. I forget who he was next to, but he was there, and I kept walking by, and I'm like, oh wow, Neal Adams is here. He wasn't there at the time, but I came back. And the one thing about going to conventions, when you get there early, sometimes it's best to get there early because you ain't gonna have a lot of people around, so you get to meet the creators or the writers, especially if they're there. And eventually he came, and he was sitting there, and I remember, and just a part of me was just like, go talk to him, just say something. So I mustered up enough courage in a sense, and I said, okay, let me go over. And I went up, and extended my hand. I said, "Hey, Mr. Adams, how you doing?" And then I will never forget the words he said to me. He says, "How you doing, young man? How are you?" I'm like, "How are you, sir?" And I'm good. I'm well. And I just said, "Sir, I'd just like to thank you for your contributions to the industry." And he's like, "Oh," he's like, it's almost like, don't praise him. But I said, "No, sir, thank you for what you did, like the things you have done." And I brought up Green Lantern, Green Arrow, number 76. And he once again kind of said the same thing I just said to you guys earlier. Like, yeah, he totally remembers that issue when he was printing, when he was drawing it, how much he knew how much that was going to either affect the industry or how much it was going to maybe give somebody an understanding of what's going on in that time period. And so I remember talking to him. I didn't speak to him too long, but I just wanted to give my thanks to him, give him a pat on the back, you know, as a fan, and to let him know that it was the only thing I wish I'd have did at that time was get a picture. Because there have been many writers that I have met and I've never got a picture. Some of them are like, oh, please, no pictures or things like that. And if they say that, then you gotta be, you know. But it was an honor to meet him. It was a real honor to meet him. It was a real honor to appreciate his art. It was a real honor. I thank him a lot for the characters he helped co-create. You know, because a lot of his co-creations are still as popular as they are when they first came out. You know, he did a wonderful job on everything he's worked on. Everything he worked on, he's done a great job. And it is going to be sad to see, it is sad to see that he's gone. But just like I said about George Perez, you know, it's just like, appreciate the time, appreciate what they have given us, because in the end, their work has been immortalized. Because of us, because of what they have done, their legacy is intact. So when you start doing your lists of greatest artists in comic books, I guarantee you're going to see Neal Adams up there. You're going to see him up there. I'm sure there are lists out there. Your top 25 favorite, all-time favorite comic book artists. Neal Adams is probably up there. He's probably in that list. Because once again, and I'll repeat it again, the artists bring the writer's work to life. Excuse me. And that is what makes the duo, the creative duo, the creative team of a comic work well. Rest in peace, Mr. Adams. Thank you for your contributions. Thank you for everything you have done. The legacy, your legacy, will live on in us. Thank you.